Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for the first day of October 2013. Let's take a look at October climatology first. The initial 10 days of the month. You can see a pretty good concentration of development areas over the past 100 years or so in the Western Caribbean, and then another clustering here in the Southwest Gulf. Still pretty good activity out here in the open tropical Atlantic, and quite a bit of sporadic development overall in the subtropical Atlantic. But by far, the largest concentration as we get into this time of year is in the Western Caribbean and parts of the Gulf of Mexico. Still some activity over the past 100 years or so. That's what climatology is. Lots of weather years added up to get what we call climatology, and we get to see the historical perspective, and that tells us that the Eastern Pacific also stays active the first 10 days of the month on average, though there's nothing out there right now. But this area right through here is really going to be the area to watch, not only now, but through the rest of the month. That being said, here is the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Despite the government shutdown, those services that protect life and property still operational, so that's good to see. We have Tropical Storm Jerry out here in the open Atlantic. Won't worry about that at all. The biggest area of concern here is Invest 97L in the, hey, you guessed it, Caribbean Sea, just where we should be looking this time of year. And here it is this afternoon on satellite. The lowest area of pressure, if you want to call it a center, probably somewhere in here. Decent look to it overall, curved shape to it, trying to get itself together under marginal conditions. Water temperatures underneath very warm for sure, and in fact, if we look at the vorticity, starting to come together, a little bit oval shaped, but it is starting to come together, and you're not seeing it strung out like we've seen in days past, where a lot of the energy was just being pulled out over the Atlantic like that. Now it's starting to bundle and focus the energy, especially right here in the center of this vorticity maximum, right there. And this is going to be heading off towards the northwest, probably towards the Yucatan, and then from there, anywhere from the Big Bend area of Florida, maybe up towards Mississippi. In fact, if we look at the models, that's why I have those. Paints a pretty good picture of some of the possibilities. Fairly tightly clustered on a track towards the Yucatan here. Doesn't look like it'll go through the Yucatan Channel. If it misses and does go through the Yucatan Channel, then it could start to strengthen faster. But most of the computer models indicating a track somewhere up here along the central Gulf Coast, with the BAMS shallow, which don't even worry about that. That is the beta and advection model shallow version, meaning that it would be very low-level center kind of thing with no deep convection. But most of the model agreement right here along the central Gulf Coast. Now let's take a look at things from an analytical perspective here. Hopefully I can explain this without losing you. This is the 850 millibar chart. So this is looking at sort of this, except this is real time, and this is forecast out into the future by 24 hours. So this is valid tomorrow morning. And here's our small area of vorticity down here in the Northwest Caribbean Sea, just off the coast of Belize. If we go out 24 more hours to 48 hours into time, it jumps off, it comes off the Yucatan there. Let's scroll, here we go, and becomes more round in nature. You see that? That's pretty good signature to it at the 5,000 foot level. But what I like to see, does it extend up another layer into the atmosphere? You see I'm highlighting 850 millibars right here. Does it go up to 500 millibars? So we're looking near the surface at 850. What about up at 500 millibars, higher up in the atmosphere? Does the circulation start to extend a little bit higher up? And the answer is yes, it does. There's the reflection of it right there. I'll highlight it in red. There it is, just a little bit of a reflection at 500 millibars. What does that mean? Well, you have your surface. We'll use this area over here to draw. You have your surface, the ocean, and your low pressure area right at the surface. And then you have the vorticity, or the spin in the atmosphere, going up at 850 millibars, which is 5,000 feet up. And then, like I'm trying to look here, does that vorticity keep going up in the atmosphere to the 500 millibar level, which is about 18,000 feet or so, 18 to 20? And yes, it does. And in really intense tropical cyclones, like we saw with Katrina and Rita as examples from 2005, the circulation can extend all the way up to the 200 millibar level, where everything is vertically stacked. So that's what we're starting to see here, that this is stacked at the surface, at the 5,000 foot level, or 850 millibars, and to some degree at 500 millibars. So let's go on out to 72 hours out into time. Actually, let's go back to, let's go back to the 850 millibar chart, 72 hours. There we go. So at 72 hours, still fairly well organized at 850 millibar level. So let's check it at 500 millibars. Does it still look vertically stacked? Yes, it does. And in fact, it's a little bit stronger, a little bit more energy and vorticity there at the 500 millibar level at 72 hours. So bottom line, the GFS starting to see that this system comes in and heads towards the coast as a strengthening small system under not the best of upper level winds. In fact, if we take a look at upper level winds at the 72-hour point, you'll see pretty strong down here. But let me point something out. I'm going to zoom in on this. Let me point something out. I think I can do it. Nope, it's not going to let me. That's okay. If it's moving northward through this upper level winds that are pretty strong, then you subtract some of that shear from it. In other words, if it's moving with the shear, then the shear is not as bad. So depending on where it's located in here, there's some areas, just south of these stronger upper level winds where the upper level winds are quite light. 5 knots, 10 knots, 20 knots at the most. And depending on the motion of this system, you see there's a pretty good anticyclone developed right here. Yeah, we have to really watch this as the bottom line. And looking at these models again, coming into the central Gulf Coast for a potential landfall, and then a lot of that heavy rain could spread up through parts of the southeast. So you folks in interior Alabama, Florida Panhandle, Georgia, into the Carolinas, especially in the Appalachians, whichever you prefer, you got to watch this closely as well. There's a front coming through, a trough digging into the west, and that's why this will turn more than likely and eventually make its way into the United States. How strong it would be, we have to just wait and see about that. But this is definitely something to watch and something we're going to be keeping close tabs on over the next several days. All right? Everything else in the tropics nice and quiet, but October can be a big month. I've talked about that. Hurricane season is not over. Still have a lot of warm water, and you never say never. So we'll see what happens with 97L. If it does become a tropical storm, the name would be Karen, just as an FYI. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Always an honor to produce these videos for you to enjoy and learn from on Hurricane Pro in HD. I'll have more for you tomorrow.